I mean, you've been through so much, Joni.
Yeah, I have.
This is Joni Mitchell playing at the Newport Folk Festival in 2022, 53 years after she last appeared here in 1969. Other than a handful of brief guest appearances, she hasn't given a full performance since 2000. These past few years have been difficult for Joni. She's had some serious health problems, including a brain aneurysm, which meant she had to, among other things, learn to play guitar again. But she's back. This performance at Newport is beautiful, her singing is so powerful, and she even breaks out into a guitar solo. And most importantly, she's having fun.
I've seen you through music, and of course your incredible rehabilitation, but music has helped you so much.
But what's more is that only Joni Mitchell could do this. The way her music is written and to learn of the journey she's been on only helps to make this performance even more powerful. Joni's festival experience began back in the 1960s. The festival scene was big back then. There was Woodstock, the Isle of Wight, and of course Newport Folk Festival, where Joni performed twice. Joni's music beautifully captured the time. Songs about love, loss, and life itself reflected how many of her generation were feeling. And perhaps more than anyone else, Joni was able to paint a picture in the mind of the listener. It's worth saying, if you don't know, that Joni is also a fantastic painter and has painted many of her own album covers. But what sets Joni apart from everyone else is how she's evolved through the years. She's grown up with her music. Comparing just the 2 years between Clouds and Blue, it's clear to see how her music not only evolved sonically, but also followed her changing life.
In the 60s, we felt we could change the world. We were young, youth tends to think that. In the 70s, we realized we couldn't, so we said, okay, let's change ourselves.
Her following albums started to become more experimental. One of my favourites is Court and Spark, which is a beautiful blend of folk songwriting and jazz influence. And then you have an album like Mingus, which explores jazz even further. And today, Joni's music is still alive and evolving. There isn't just one definitive version of a Joni Mitchell song. Not only with her own performances, but artists like Herbie Hancock have recorded an album of her songs. This won Album of the Year at the Grammys. Joni's music being alive means that when she performs, she's not trying to recreate an earlier version of the song. Instead, each performance is an opportunity to explore the idea behind the song. It's a painting of how Joni sees the world, and perhaps the best example of this is her song Both Sides Now.
Flows and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and...
First recorded by Judy Collins in 1968, it first appeared in Joni's catalogue on her album Clouds. Both Sides Now is about exploring things from a different perspective, and how as we go through life, it allows us to see things in a different way. The version on Clouds is just Joni and her guitar, and it's bright, it's joyful and fun, just as you'd expect from looking at the album cover. And it illustrates her youth and innocence. Not only is the song about different perspectives, but this performance of it shows her personality at the time, and how she related to the idea behind the song. She later re-recorded the song in 2000 in a more orchestral style. This version is slower and more reflective, and at the time she would have been 56 years old. And of course, by then, Joni would have seen life from a different perspective.
I really don't know clouds at all.
What Joni seems to understand so well is that the power and the meaning behind a song isn't held up in any one performance or recording, but instead it starts with the original idea that she's trying to communicate. Other artists have attempted to do a similar thing. Roger Waters, for example, is currently re-recording Dark Side of the Moon, taking the original musical idea and reinterpreting it in a different way. And many artists, of course, have re-recorded their music in a different style. But we're always left with this feeling of comparison, like there's one definitive version and the following ones are all compared to that. This isn't the case with Both Sides Now. The two versions are like partners. The existence of the other one only helps to elevate its meaning. And it isn't just the case with Both Sides Now. All the songs she's singing at Newport are given a new life. Perhaps the only comparable example of this is Glenn Gould recording two versions of Bach's Goldberg Variations. The first recording in 1955 became his debut album, and its technical precision set the path for his career. His playing is brisk and articulate, which was different from many of the traditional interpretations, and it captures his optimism and enthusiasm as a young pianist. But he later recorded the same piece again in 1981, and this time in a completely different style. This interpretation, much like what Joni did with Both Sides Now, is slower, more expressive, and much more reflective. It's the same piece, it's the same music, but the impact it has on the listener is completely different.
Summertime and the living is easy.
Since re-recording Both Sides Now in 2000, Joni has mostly stayed out of the spotlight. She spent more time painting and less time on music, but in 2015 she suffered a brain aneurysm. It left her needing physical therapy and daily rehabilitation.
I'm learning. I'm looking at videos that are on the net to see where I put my fingers, you know.
But slowly over time, things began to improve, and she gradually started making more and more public appearances. And in 2017, after a visit from her friend Eric Anderson, she started hosting music-making sessions in her own home, known as the Joni Jams. Guests such as Elton John and Paul McCartney would visit her home in Laurel Canyon just to hang out and play music. Joni's enthusiasm for music then continued to grow, and slowly she started to sing and play guitar at these jams.
When I first came up here, you know, and we had the Joni Jam, I remember you just played the bongos.
Yeah.
And you sang Love Potion Number 9, Summertime, and what was the other one? Poison Ivy.
Yeah.
Those 3 songs.
Mm-hmm.
But Joni, the Newport Folk Festival, you played guitar.
Mm-hmm.
In the following years, her health continued to improve, and in 2022, the idea came about that maybe Joni would like to perform publicly again. Brandi Carlile, who helped to organise the Joni Jams, had the idea that they could take one of these to the stage. And so the idea came about that Newport Folk Festival could host a live Joni Jam.
I dreamed it. The first time she opened her mouth and sang Summertime, and I saw Herbie Hancock burst into tears. Wow. And everybody in the room catch their breath because she had decided to sing, really decided to sing, you know? Mm-hmm. I knew she'd do it at Newport. I can't really say how I knew it.
Originally billed as Brandi Carlile and Friends, the event turned into Joni Mitchell's first full public performance in 22 years, and it's incredible.
Just before our love got lost, you said.
What makes this event so special is that Joni embraces what music means to her, despite all that she's been through. For many artists, a live performance in their older years is a nostalgic look back at their music from the past. But not for Joni.
Do you think you have will and grit?
Yeah, I think I do.
She's spoken about how she still has a strong will to live, and I think this is true for her music as well. She wants it to be alive and accepting of the time in which she's singing it. It's fascinating how Joni's music, when sung back in the 60s, was such a clear representation of how the younger generation were feeling. And today, her music doesn't sound old or from a time gone by. In fact, it's probably more relevant now than ever.
And what we're doing is we're giving the audience a gift because they're going to get a glimpse at that. They're going to get a glimpse at the way that Joni Mitchell is still impacting, changing the world through pop culture right this very minute.
Right.
Joni considers herself to first and foremost be a painter, which she is, but I think her connection to painting reaches beyond the canvas. She's a painter with her words and with her music, and she's able to paint a picture in the mind of the listener. Thankfully, Joni seems to be doing much better now, and it's so great to see her not only singing and playing guitar again, but also embracing how she's seen life from both sides now.